Hit it. Hit it. Hit it. Get it. Get it. Hit it. Hit it. Get it. Hit it. Oh, I want you. Oh, I know you want me. You know I want you. Yeah. Five. 1, 2, 3, 4. Uno, dos, tres, cuatro.
Listen, he's no longer done.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another
Hello.
episode of the Jersey Nerds podcast, I guess. You are home for... What? What's
Karaoke.
that? You're home
It's
for...
karaoke night at the JLD.
You're home for karaoke, I guess. You're home for debates and discussions surrounding sports uniforms, hockey jersey design, and more, except actually, I was about to say we're not going to talk about that much today, but never mind, we are. Because I thought for a while we weren't going to be, and then we changed plans last minute. So, you're home for debates and discussions surrounding sports uniforms, hockey jersey design, and more. I am just recording a podcast. I'm Bpoe. Today I'm joined by, big surprise, Justin and Burkus. How are y'all doing?
Wow.
I'm just recording a podcast. I'm dad.
Congratulations, you're dad now?
I'm dad. I gave birth to a 55-pound pit bull.
Oh.
Daddy?
It was
How did that function?
very poorly.
Interesting.
Much like how I have functioned over the past 6 to 8 years. Burkus, how are you doing?
The bit isn't working.
Oh no.
What is happening?
Tomorrow's my birthday, and now I can't pause the music. Crap. Yeah, it's my birthday tomorrow, so I'm excited. And also, I'm wearing a Flyers jersey.
Which is a choice, to say the least. Oh yeah, we didn't do what are we wearing. People, what are you wearing?
I am
We do
wearing...
that after the intro thing. I just skipped the transition whatsoever.
I am wearing...
Jakub Voracek, to be specific, by the way. It's
He's
a home
wearing
jersey. That's the best one.
He has skinned him alive and is wearing his skin suit.
His former skin
So,
suit.
listening to the audio version only. His
Yes.
former skin suit. Oh my gosh.
It's like a snake or whatever. They
You
shed
trade
their
it.
skin and then they get a new one. I am wearing
skin- Wait,
a
no, the board.
Penguins Reebok Edge alternate, the current home jersey style, a Sidney Crosby one with a Stanley Cup final patch on the chest because it is that time of year again, and that is what this podcast is about as well. Also, to pair with it,
Right.
2017 Stanley Cup champion hat.
So is that the 2016 jersey then?
This patch is 2016, so
Okay. And the 2017 hat. I just wanted to
I
make sure we were.
I do have
think
both
about the
hats, but I have the 17 hat on and the 16 patch. I need to get. I want to get my my white road version of this with Justin Schultz on the back and the 17 patch because of the Schultz chug thing.
I love it.
And then I'm getting my blank other one of these in Kunitz in 2017 for obvious reasons.
Yeah, I'm gonna get all my. I have all the patches. I have a 2017 fully done Road Gensel, and then I have the patches to convert. I have the black jersey that you're wearing in a flurry that I want to convert to a 2016, and then I want to convert my two previous era Reebok Edge ones, the Vegas Gold ones, to 2008 and 2009 jerseys as well. And I have all the patches for all four of them. I just need to get them stitched up still. But
I also
I'm not
have
wearing-
another one of these with Oli Mata on it. Sorry to cut you off, Justin.
no, you
And I got that one sometime during that season, or possibly the season that those jerseys were unveiled. Whenever they made the final, I slapped the patch on that one, 2016. And then I think I got this one. It might have been after they won the cup and I put the patch on it. I can't remember. But
fair.
Like, I kind of also have a long-term project I want to do with that. It's technically a jersey foul, but I eventually want to get a Blue Jackets home jersey. Just have like all of the patches like used running down the sleeves. It's like
that is
inaugural 10th anniversary John H. McConnell, like just going down on either side.
I feel like
It's
there's
something
a
I wanna
much
do.
better way to display patches or something.
Probably, but
Like, I
fuck
think
you. I do what I want.
for most teams, it would be horrible for the Blue Jackets since they have like a fairly bland jersey with a full length arm yoke. Like, I feel like if you were to do it for any team, that is probably the best one to do it for.
That's my thinking.
That's a fair
It's
point.
gonna be a home jersey, and it'll frame it nicely.
I mean, the best poop is still take it for what you will, but
so far there's been 8 patches, and then they're gonna have a 9th next year of the Global Series.
there you go. Wow, that's honestly that's really few. But I guess they haven't. Have they ever been to the Cup final even?
Nope.
Bro, we've won 1 round.
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh, good stuff. The sweep and that's it. Well, hopefully
Well, unless you count the bubble against Toronto.
Wrong. There you go. Well, before we get into things farther, I am wearing a Edmonton Oilers alternate jersey, not the current one that they'll wear in the playoffs because they're dumb, but their previous. I call it the Orange Crush alternate. I don't know if it was ever called that by anyone of value.
I've never heard anyone.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard that.
That's what I call it. But I love
it. It's called the WHA jersey.
That's fair. Honestly, in my opinion, the best jersey they've ever worn. I would love to see a set around this, but I think we all know that. But yeah. So as was alluded to, we're going to be talking about what everyone's talking about in the hockey world these days, and that is the playoffs, most specifically the JNHL playoffs. That is the Jersey Nerds Hockey League. As of this afternoon, with the NHL regular season concluding, our fantasy league has concluded.
Justin, I wonder who the champion was.
Yeah, I really don't know. It must have been a really fan favorite team with a very charming general manager, I would assume.
So none of us?
Yeah, I guess
I much
not.
appreciate your congratulations, guys, and I humbly accept the honor.
I love it. So yeah, all 3 of us were in the semifinals. So congrats to all 3 of us. I beat Bpoe in the semifinals and then Burkus in the finals, and that's all I'm going to say about that because I don't want to toot my own horn too much.
He won 800 to 600 in the last round.
It was not close.
The fun stat for the regular season: if in order for Justin to win, he had to have the highest point total out of any team, he still would have gone 19-4.
And what did I go like?
Wait, no, that's wrong.
I did
14-9.
Yeah.
I mean,
okay, there you go. Which still would have considerably made the playoffs, like comfortably, yes. Which is pretty wild.
You would have been the 4 seed.
That's hilarious. Which, like, I was almost anyway. Like one loss to that one game against Bpoe had that gone differently.
I feel like we need to have like some sort of side podcast discussing this and maybe bring some of the other guys on. Possibly just for us because how many other people really care about our fantasy league. But I think the craziest thing that happened is that like after the first couple of weeks for quite a long time, Justin would beat me every week that we didn't play, and then every week that me and Justin faced off, he would lose to me for like 3 matchups in a row for some reason. But like every week surrounding that, he'd have more points than me.
I started the season 0-2 and then lost 2 games for the rest of the season, including the playoffs. So I lost like 2 games in 2 weeks and then lost 2 games in like 24 weeks. And both of those games were to Brendan. So it was definitely a wild year. I was definitely the favorite going into the playoffs. I didn't expect. I feel like I expected the classic NHL President's Trophy curse, so I was far from comfortable. But definitely, things shook out, and so now I am 2-time defending champion. Want to throw that out there as well. We do have some fresh GMs coming in the league for next year. We're expanding from 12 to 16 teams. Like Brendan said, we might do a side podcast to discuss everything surrounding that, but just wanted to throw that out there for that self-promo and just to kind of, make Burkus remember that he lost by 200-plus points in the championship. But he got there, so hey, that's a win.
And I mean, I also said, who's really going to care about our fantasy league. And that's probably true when it comes down to, who drafts who and the matchups and whatnot. But this is a design community, so we all design our teams from the ground up as if they are real hockey teams. So that's one thing that we'll certainly be posting on socials and everything, and that's something that I think a lot of people find interesting. So stay tuned for that.
And now that the season has concluded and there's not having to take time managing a team, I think there's definitely going to be a lot of post season review type content to put some of those identities out there and show what we worked on, and then also set the table for next season, because I know we have a lot of teams refreshing their look or completely changing it, and then as I mentioned, those 4 new teams. So definitely a lot of fun, a lot of fun, unique design work, and more to come, obviously.
And the funny thing about that, bare minimum, sorry again, Burkus, I think at bare minimum everybody's changing their jerseys. So
yeah,
I'm not. Well, I'm adding new jerseys, I'll say.
Yeah.
But I think, are the 3 of us all staying in our cities and keeping our identities? Because I know me and Justin are.
Yeah, I'm staying around.
So
I really like the brand that I have with the Phoenix, so I do want to keep that at least 1 year, considering I had a successful season, all things considered. So keep the Louisville Pittsburgh rivalry going.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the only 3 teams that are actually staying put are the 3 people on this podcast.
All this fresh design, meanwhile all of us just sit here in our ways.
Yeah.
I'm definitely planning on, I'll keep the identity, but I'm going to change up, refresh logos a bit, and make new jerseys and stuff as well. So looking forward to that. But yeah, lots to come there. Like Brendan said, I'm sure we'll have more content there. Anything else to say on the 2021-2022 JNHL season, gentlemen?
Congratulations, Justin. Yep.
That's
also fuck you.
Got it. There it is. But keep an eye out for some special stuff related there that you might see in a certain "What Are You Wearing" section of our podcast in the future. But I'll leave it at that. So obviously, maybe the JNHL podcast isn't your cup of tea, or podcast. Postseason isn't your cup of tea. Hopefully the NHL postseason is. That is the true topic of discussion, both for today and in the hockey world. Things are starting as of this recording tomorrow, as of this being posted today. I believe I should have pulled it up.
Start Monday or Tuesday? I thought they were Tuesday.
The games start tomorrow.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
I think it's just the Penguins that start Tuesday. Then that I'm thinking of.
It's 50-50.
Tomorrow is half of them, so it's the first game of the Bruins Hurricane series, the Lightning Leaf series, the Blues Wild series, and then the King Oilers. And then the other 4 teams all have their game 1 on Tuesday.
All the 2-3 series? No.
No. Hurricanes Bruins is a 1-4. But yeah, otherwise, and then Penguins Rangers is the only one that isn't. So lots of fun stuff to see there. We're going to do a little playoff preview. We're going to talk hockey, actually, not hockey jerseys. We're going to do a little bit of both. But we wanted to actually talk to the sport that we do enjoy and watch. We don't, just stare at these sweaters in our closet every night. I mean, I do from time to time, but certainly not every night. But we're gonna do a little breakdown on the playoffs and what we expect to see from the first round. So the first series, Brendan, I don't know what order. Do we want to go down the bracket kind of thing? So do we want to start with?
I have the bracket pulled up right here. You guys can see my screen, I believe. So you can go in whatever order you want. And as we mentioned, or as Justin kind of mentioned, we're going to fill this out as a jersey bracket and submit it to the Jersey Nerds bracket challenge group. So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. But
depending on when this comes out, if there's time, join that.
Yeah.
True. Very, very speedily. But I don't think we've posted a link publicly, so we should probably do that as well.
Good idea.
When this comes out. But yeah, we'll start in the top left corner.
Or maybe, before this comes out, considering it might come out.
Fair.
I mean, I'm hoping to actually rush this one out. Not rush it out, but, not take a week to post it like I did with the last one.
Fair.
Because, again, I said it last episode, life gets in the way. But this one's a little, I guess, more topical in time.
Hopefully
yeah,
it won't be
specific,
2 hours
so.
and 20 minutes.
Yeah.
The last one.
So enjoy
had a
your
big-
back-to-back Jersey Nerds podcasts, listeners.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully you don't have anything to do better than listen to us. But the first
I know
matchup
I
there.
do.
For your own sake, I kind of hope they do.
Yeah, exactly. So the first matchup there is the top seed in the West, the Colorado Avalanche, who will have home ice advantage throughout at least the Western Conference portion of the playoffs, assuming they keep moving on against the Predators, who, as of Saturday, it looked like this matchup wasn't going to be a thing. It looked like that the Predators were going to be facing Calgary, and the Stars were going to be facing the Avalanche in this series. We saw the Stars play against an emergency backup goalie wearing Stars equipment for the Ducks in their final game, and the Stars broke the tie against that emergency backup goalie to get the win. Meanwhile, the Predators had a 4-goal lead in the first period. They were up 4-0 on the Coyotes and ended up blowing that 4-goal lead to the Coyotes in the third period. And that shifting of points, Nashville missing out on points there, and then Dallas getting 2 points in their game, ended up with the Predators and the 8th seed dropping down on the last day of the season, and now they have to face the number 1 seed Avalanche. Another piece of note: UC Saros is still out with injury and will likely be out for the duration of the first round. So not exactly the recipe you want to go for when you're facing the best team in your conference with arguably your most important player not available. So on that, how do we see this going down? Is there anything to even talk about here in terms of intrigue, or is this pretty cut and dry with Nashville being, pretty much as shorthanded as you can be when it comes to missing your elite starting goalie?
I'm going to make a really bold prediction and say Nashville in 4, because I think Colorado, the whole team is going to catch COVID, and they're going to have to play their AHL team. And quite frankly, that's probably the only way that Nashville can win this series. Colorado in 4. Like, it's come on. Especially with Saros out.
I think Nashville will get a game in there. But yeah, Saros leaving is an absolute fucking backbreaker for them. You're an explicit podcast now, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good. That's like the third time I've dropped the F-bomb in
That's
the course of 17 minutes. But yes, that just destroys them. I feel like they had a chance of goalieing Colorado with him, but without him, I mean, you need Matt Duchene and Ryan Johansson to go fucking off. Same with
this is a team that I don't know that many people even expected to taste the playoffs. And then as Matt just mentioned, you had Duchene and Johansson have surprising resurgences. I mean, they're good players and they always have been, but they've seen players who were on the decline, more in the twilight of their careers, and then had big bounce back seasons. And I think if the Predators were full strength, it would be an intriguing series. Frankly, I still wouldn't see the Predators beating the Avs because the Avs are so good. I mean, when you have Cale Makar, you have Mikko Rantanen, you have I almost said Cale Makar again because it feels like he's 2 players out there, but you have Landeskog coming back off LTI, I'm sure. Thanks to all that cap shenanigans, you have McKinnon. Like it's an all like their starting lineup is effectively an all-star team. Like it's ridiculous. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't think there's a lot to hope for in terms of being a Predators fan. If that's your cup of tea here, I don't think there's a lot going for you.
I think if Saros was in, I'd maybe say Nashville in 5, maybe 6. Or, sorry, Colorado in 5, maybe 6. But without Saros, I wouldn't be surprised if any team takes, a game from any series, really. It's the NHL. That kind of just happens sometimes. But, if we're ignoring that, randomness aspect, Colorado just dominates them in every way, shape, and form.
If you're gonna bet on a sweep, it's gonna be here.
I think Jay Fresh polled his Twitter followers, and it was 98% were picking Colorado. And so he has 2% of his followers are Preds fans.
Right. Fair. Yeah,
It's like
there's not.
whenever I would make my brackets, in high school, and it worked out a couple of times. And I just picked the Penguins to win the cup every time because I'm biased and I didn't really want to cheer against the Penguins for my bracket's sake. So
Should work for me semi-consistently.
I've become like the opposite. Like I feel like I always bet against the Penguins now, just because I'm like, well, if they lose, at least I was right. If they win,
Yeah.
well, the Penguins won. Happy.
I'm really not sure what kind of a method I'm going to take into my actual bracket this year, and we'll get to that whenever we get to that.
Fair. So it sounds like there's not a lot of discussion here. I think if there's going to be a sweep, we're going to see it here. Obviously, I think there's always potential anywhere. The Blue Jackets can win their one series ever and sweep the Lightning. But I think if I were a betting man, which I'm not, this would
even then. A big part of that was Sergei Bobrovsky standing on his head, and
fair, yeah.
The Preds just don't have their Bobrovsky. So
right, the availability of goalie,
whoever their backup is able to become the next Bobrovsky, then tough luck.
That would be big save Dave Riddick.
Oh yeah, they're fucked.
Man, that series is insane in hindsight. That Columbus swept the Tampa Bay Lightning, who at that season had a record-breaking regular season, and then went on to win back-to-back Stanley Cups immediately afterwards. Like, in hindsight, that is nuts.
We're the last team to beat the Lightning in a playoff series.
Is that real? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And I mean, but yeah, like if you think about it, though, we also only have like 4 players left from that roster, and one of them is on LTIR. Actually, 2 of them are on LTIR. One of them is our backup goalie, and then Boone-Jenner and Zach Werenski.
Brutal.
We have 4 players left from that.
So yeah, not ideal. Yeah, definitely a different Blue Jackets team. And I think, funnily enough, I feel like in general the Jersey matchup offers a similar tale here. If you look at the Colorado sweaters versus the Predators, and I'll admit the Predator sweaters have grown on me, or I should say uniforms have grown on me a lot since they were first unveiled in 2017. Noted, they started in the basement, so growth is relative. Like they could only have grown.
They're now a whopping 26.
Right, exactly. So obviously a little bit different context for those two, but yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a ton to discuss there either. I think I'm interested to see how these jerseys match up against each other. I think honestly they could probably complement each other quite well. And looking at previous matchups, it's not well, I might be wrong. I don't love them. Yeah, I'm not going to talk too much about this one. I think it's the Avs, and yeah, I don't think it's going to be a terribly beautiful series, hockey wise or jersey wise, at the end of the day.
Unless you're an Avs fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't dislike the Nashville jerseys nearly as much as everybody else does, but it's Colorado from a jersey standpoint as well, 100%.
You want to lock it in?
Done.
Yeah, sure. Colorado. Do we put the number of games? Colorado in 4?
Well, that's you don't do that till you fill it.
You have to do it at the end, yeah, which I think is weird. Yeah.
I haven't filled out my actual bracket yet, so.
Wow, slacker.
That's the age my head. Minnesota St. Louis.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So the next one is, I think this was the first playoff series that was actually like locked in. Was I think the first one we knew was that we were going to see these two teams go against each other. So obviously, a lot of cool storylines here. I know for me and Bpoe, of course, the Fleury factor of the Wild picking up Marc-Andre Fleury at the trade deadline. Now rolling with a tandem of Marc-Andre Fleury and Cam Talbot, which wow, if you're gonna run into the playoffs with two goalies behind you, you could certainly do a lot worse, and I'm not sure you could do a lot better.
Maybe if you had like Marc-Andre Fleury and Robin Leonard, but I don't know why someone would give that.
No team would ever.
Marc-Andre Fleury in 2016-17, Matt Murray.
I don't know why I don't give that up.
Yeah, fair. So obviously, definitely a back end heavy team in Minnesota there. Quality defense as well. Matt down by Jared Spurgeon. Of course,
Jared Spurgeon, goal of the week, boy. Watch this here, boy. Watch this here, kid.
And then you can't talk about the Wild without talking about Kirill Kaprizov and Kevin Fiala as well. Both of whom have had great seasons. Kaprizov showing why he won the Calder last year, and obviously showing no signs of slowing down in NHL play after coming over from the KHL. And then the Blues, really everyone coming out of the woodwork. Vlad Tarasenko really showing Seattle what they missed out on, and probably the biggest missed opportunity of the expansion draft. Not taking Vlad Tarasenko for free, Ville Husso, Jordan Binnington, and stealing the starting job from him as a rookie. Things you absolutely love to see. That's a story of the Blues, I think. I don't typically care for the Blues, but yeah. So Blues Wild is a 3-4 matchup or 2-3 matchup. I can do math. In the Central Division, one of the stronger divisions. So definitely a lot of fun going on here. What do you guys see shaking down? What are your strengths and weaknesses of each team? How do you see this playing out?
Bpoe, you go.
Okay, I was gonna let you go first. I can't say, and that goes for most of these series, that I'm a huge expert on these teams, any of them really, aside from the Penguins. But from what I do know, this series is probably going to be pretty close, but Minnesota is really in there. Fuck it, we got to go for it because of the Parise and Suter buyouts.
True.
What was it, kicking in next year? So this is kind of their chance, and they've been a lot better last year and this year than they have been for quite some time. They've been actual contenders. In St. Louis, I don't entirely know what to make of them from the outsider's perspective because they, won the Cup in 2019, and they've just kind of been in limbo ever since, kind of. I mean, I can't remember, did they make the playoffs in 20 and 21? I think they did.
I believe so. Yeah, because
they still have some pretty good players.
They were the team with the pleasure of getting swept from the Avs in the first round last season.
Right.
First of all, the Avs respectfully bowed out in the second round, as is tradition.
And I mean, they've been okay. I think it's going to be a pretty close series. From what I know, I would say Minnesota in 7. I don't know if that's my bias because I kind of do want to see Minnesota make a push, at least a round. But because they haven't had too much of that, and their jerseys are also nice. I don't know if that has any of the bias to do with it, but.
Of course. I mean, we definitely make our decisions based on jerseys and jerseys alone. That's how you evaluate hockey teams, for sure.
It's the only way to do it. I think this is also going to be a very close series. I think these two teams are really evenly matched. I think they both have really good defenses. They both have star Russian wingers, good center depth. I think the main differences are Minnesota's goaltending and St. Louis's experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I think of those two, I like St. Louis's experience a bit more. I think St. Louis takes it in like 7, maybe 6, but I would probably go with the Blues. But I would not be shocked whatsoever if the Wild won.
Yeah, for sure. I've actually gone ahead and pulled up Jay Fresh's his team cards to look at these matchups head to head, and it is a fairly split matchup. The Blues win 5 of the categories, and the Wild win 5. Actually, based on the advanced stats, the Blues have better goaltending apparently, and I think that's just because Husso has a smaller sample size. So because he's a stellar player. But the Wild's defense wins every category, which I think could be a big play here if the Wild can shut down the Blues offense. I think obviously that'll play a big role. If you have a shutdown defense in front of either Marc-Andre Fleury or Cam Talbot, you're going to be in good shape. I think this will be one that I think this might be the most intriguing playoff series of the first round. So I think this could go either way. I would definitely give the edge to Minnesota as well, personally.
It might be the closest first round series. There's certainly a couple other ones that I'd say could argue for most intriguing. Example, Toronto-Tampa. Will Toronto finally make it out of the first round and take down the back-to-back champions, or will Tampa keep the Toronto memes going? But again, we can move to that when we move to that. But from a hockey standpoint, yeah, it's going to be close. And Burkus, you bring up a great point with St. Louis having that cup experience, from a couple years ago. In Minnesota, not so much.
Yeah, but really, like, if you look at the Blues roster, like, I feel like this year has been the year of the young player from the Blues, as it feels like there is a little bit of, Jordan Kyrou, seemingly coming out of nowhere. You have Robert Thomas playing first-line minutes, Pavel Buchnevich, who wasn't a part of that cup run, and they basically stole from New York, which, as a Penguins fan, I'm so happy for, given that matchup. I would hate to add Pavel Buchnevich to the Rangers roster for that series. But yeah, certainly a youth movement from the Blues. So it'll be interesting to see how that, experienced mentoring of Vlad Tarasenko, Ryan O'Reilly, David Perron and company can interact
Torrey
with.
Krug even.
Come again?
Torrey Krug was in that finals matchup against them in 2019.
There you go. So yeah, lots of fun stuff there. In terms of jerseys, this is one that I think is...
Stellar.
Go ahead.
Stellar. Just absolutely stellar.
Stellar. Yeah, I think it's good. I don't really have anything negative to say about. I like both of these teams. Both of their jerseys. I like all four of these teams. I don't know. I like all four jersey options that we could see. I don't know that they match up terribly well against one another. With the darker navy and the heaviness of the green, but obviously good jerseys all around. What are y'all's thoughts on whose jersey would reign supreme between these guys?
For me, it's the Blues. Like I'm very high on the Blues, like home and road set. I think it's probably second or third best set in the league. And Minnesota, I really like their away, but like I think their home is a bit overrated. So if it's based purely on jerseys, I would if it's based purely on jerseys, I would pick the Blues. But Minnesota ain't shabby either.
And see, I'm pretty much the polar opposite there, where I absolutely love Minnesota's whole set, especially their home jersey. I think it's one of the best home jerseys in the league. And St. Louis's are fine, but I'm not like a diehard fan of the St. Louis Blues jerseys, and I think I even said last podcast or a couple podcasts ago that I wouldn't have any problem with St. Louis switching to a Winter Classic based set with the their 2017 one and the more recent one. So for me, it's Minnesota easily, but St. Louis still has good jerseys, which goes to show how good of a jersey matchup this is.
Yeah, I feel like this one again mirrors the hockey, where like if this was a jersey matchup, I could see it going to 7 games. And I agree. I think the kicker for me is like I could see the Blues I like their jerseys, but I could see them replacing their current primaries with their alternate and Winter Classic tomorrow and not be terribly upset. Whereas if the Wild were to do anything drastically different than their current set, I would be pretty peeved. And yes, that includes doing a set based on their reverse retro, which I think would be like one of the worst things they could do, beyond just like randomly making a black jersey or something. The last thing I want to see is a North Stars-esque Wild primary system. Maybe that's a hot take, because I know a lot of people love the reverse retro, but I think that's another case of blind nostalgia more so than anything else. So for me,
I mean,
it would
it
be
looks good, but there's no need. Their current ones are
exactly.
fine.
Yeah,
The jerseys that look good, but
like
don't.
their current jerseys are just better.
Right.
Like
It's like
that doesn't mean that their reverse retro is bad. It just means their current set is just better.
Right. So I think that puts us at Wild. I'm taking that 2-1. Unless Burkus can convince us, but there doesn't seem to be much wiggle from me or people.
I knew this was going to be a losing battle for me, but I mean, whatever.
So just to have the discussion, better series you're more excited for visually, the Avalanche Predator series or the Wild Blues?
Wild Blues, and it
Wild
isn't even
Blues,
fucking
100%.
close.
Yeah,
That's what I figured. I wanted to ask,
especially the games in St. Louis. Those are going to be phenomenal.
Yeah, fair.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with it, but I could very well make the argument, or I think the argument could very well be made, that both Minnesota and St. Louis's jerseys are better than Colorado's, which is the better of those two from the Colorado-Nashville matchup. So
I can see that from a
I'm not sure where I'd rank. I mean, I think Minnesota's my favorite of the four. I don't know where I'd rank Colorado and St. Louis, like in 2 or 3, and then Nashville would be 4. But
I'll be honest, if we're talking full uniform, Colorado might have my favorite home uniform in the NHL. Just because I think it works so well with the blue equipment. Obviously, the blue equipment on the road kind of negates that, though. So I could definitely see arguing that the full uni set of Minnesota or St. Louis tops Colorado. While I have it pulled up, I went back and looked at the advanced stats comparator between the Avalanche and the Predators. The Avalanche win every single category except power play goals, where they're ranked 8th towards Nashville's 5th, so not a lot of discrepancy there, even though they're behind. And then goaltending, where they rank 16th in comparison to Nashville's 15th, obviously, with Saros out, though. Colorado will take that one, too. So pretty cut and dry there.
So I guess Nashville could win the series if they were on the power play the whole time. And Colorado got COVID.
There you go. I love it. So let's keep things going in the West. We talked about the drama on the last day of the season. I'm not going to count today because who cares about the Kraken-Winnipeg game that didn't do anything of value. My apologies, Kraken or Jets fans. But
I honestly didn't even realize it was on earlier because it's a middle of the day Sunday game. I was expecting it to be later this now, and then I look and it was like, oh, the first period's done already. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it wasn't even supposed to be today either. It was just the blizzard makeup because of the blizzard. Earlier in the year. But the other game is moves us into the Pacific Division sector, even with a central team. But the Stars in that first wild card spot will have to face the Flames in Calgary. The Flames, one of the more complete-looking teams in the NHL. You take Matt Tkachuk, you take Johnny Gaudreau, Elias Lindholm, you add Tyler Toffoli shortly ahead of the deadline and have a lot of time for him to gel in the lineup on that second line with Backlund and Mangiapane. Blake Coleman coming over from that dominant third line of the Lightning last playoffs coming over in the offseason. Rasmus Anderson with a fairly breakout year over on the back end. Jacob Markstrom being a legitimate Vezina candidate, making Vancouver look a little silly for letting him walk. But I mean, Thatcher Demko is no slouch as well. So a very, very complete team. Versus the Stars, who kind of limped their way into the playoffs, opened the door for Vegas to potentially come back in. Even as a Stars fan, or perhaps especially as a Stars fan, I'm not super bullish on this matchup. But the Stars, a team driven primarily by their first line and their first line alone with Jason Robinson, Rube Hintz, and the ageless wonder Joe Pavelski. And then not a heck of a lot. There's a lot of money buried in the bottom of their lineup with Ben Sagan and Radulov, but really not a ton to see there. They held on to Klingberg at the deadline, which was definitely one of the more rumored moves for a while. And then the team with all the goaltending depth at the beginning of the season now has Jake Ottinger as their full-time starter, and then Scott Wedgwood, who they picked up from the Arizona Coyotes at the deadline.
Did you say Scott Wedgwood?
Scott Wedgwood. Fun fact, if you go to the team comparator, the Flames are in the top 10 in every category except finishing, where they're in 13th. And the Stars are only in the top 10 in 5v5 goals against. The Flames win all 10 categories versus the Stars. So maybe even a more cut and dry conclusion here. But I will open it up to y'all to see if you disagree with the numbers.
No. Calgary is winning this. I am I think it's going to be closer than Avs Preds, but not by a lot. I again see this one probably ending in 5. I think Calgary, that first line is the best line. It's just almost the best line in hockey. Probably is.
Right now, it might be.
Dallas has the corpse of Jamie Benn and also Klingberg and Robertson and who else. So I think it'll be not that close and not that long.
Yeah, I mean, the Flames have been they've been great all season, which I can't say I was expecting coming into this season, but yeah, they've been a great team. And Dallas, again, like you said, kind of just stumbled into the playoffs. There's, I wouldn't be surprised to see Dallas take a game, but it's Calgary, 100%.
Yeah, I want to envision a world where the Stars come out of this as they did in the bubble in 2020 when they were playing the Flames, but I no matter which way I slice it, turn it upside down, spin it around, it's the Flames 10 times out of 10. And there's not much you can do about it. But from a jersey perspective, things get a little closer, I would say. I think, honestly, this might be the best looking matchup of the first round, and I don't know that it's terribly close for me. I think this one is by far and away going to be beautiful night in and night out.
Yeah, I think the only ones that are even remotely close are Minnesota, St. Louis, and Pittsburgh Rangers. Beyond that, Calgary, Dallas is going to be phenomenal. 2 absolutely amazing classic jerseys. And this is another one I know is going to be a losing battle, but I would probably actually pick Dallas in this one for the matchup. I really like their set. I like the bright green. It's unique to them. I like how it kind of almost matches their logo a bit, and I like their unique number. I think there's a lot of nice things to like about Dallas, but I'm pretty sure both you guys are going to go Calgary, so... Are you guys going to both go Calgary?
I guess you were waiting for me. I think you're a little off on that one, Burkus, because again, they both have some great jerseys, and it's one of the best matchups. But if there was one thing to really tip me towards one side, I'm going for the unique color that Dallas has in that green. There's not many other teams in the league that wear green at all, let alone as a primary jersey, and their home and away set. And Dallas and Minnesota are 2 of them, and Dallas has a unique shade of its own. So I'm going Dallas as well, but it's again a very close matchup.
Well, I was holding off because I didn't want to, add all the intrigue early on. I wanted to save it, but Burkus is way off because I would go Dallas as well.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a homer. Maybe it's the fact that really I didn't like the Flames jerseys before this year. They've grown on me considerably, and I think they are, top 10 in the league, maybe even top 5. But like we've said, I love the Stars look. I think bonus points for the Stars too for, you can go back to a look that is good. And that's what the Flames did. That's what the Penguins did. That's what, it feels like every team is doing now. But the Stars, I feel like, are one of the few recent examples of a modern classic look where, they implemented it, and I think it was 2013. Here, less than 10 years later, it just feels like it's always been there. Obviously, there's always clamoring for the star pattern jersey, and I'm I'm sure we all have opinions on that. Mine bucks the trend of a lot of people wanting to go back to it. I don't want to see it, frankly, beyond reverse retros or things like that. But I think this is the best the Stars have ever looked. The color is awesome. I'm always a big proponent for breaking up the monochrome look with equipment. So I like that the Stars have, green jerseys and socks and black equipment, whereas the Flames home is red all the way through. Not to say it's a bad look, and certainly black equipment would not look better. But as a rule, I prefer contrasting equipment
Yellow
for the most
equipment.
part. There you go.
White pants.
So yeah, I would take the Stars here as well, which I think this is the first case of our jersey opinions differing from our hockey opinions. So some discontent in the jersey bracket. So it'll be interesting to see if our jerseys predict the upset. Go ahead.
One last thing on Dallas. I know some people absolutely hate their current set, and I do not understand it to any. Yeah, honestly, I'm definitely mainly referring to them. I don't understand it by any means. I can understand criticism that it looks similar to the Rangers or the Blackhawks or something like that, because it really does, the jersey pattern. And the logo, and I don't understand how people dislike that logo either. I personally think it's a great logo, and it's a very natural evolution of what they had before, because it is the exact same star shape as it was before. So, as you said, it's really kind of a modern classic. Could it be improved, the jersey design? Maybe, but I don't necessarily think there's a need for it either.
And honestly, I think I get the Blackhawks comparison, but I think it's also a lazy argument, because that is looking at the home jersey and the home jersey alone.
Yeah.
The road does not look like the Blackhawks jersey. I mean, it has a yoke, it has, a totally different striping pattern. Certainly the home looks very similar, and I get people comparing it to. I think it's not the right point to say it's a direct copy of it by any means. Especially when you have, the Bruins and the Oilers and the Rangers and etc., all having the same three-stripe pattern, and nobody gets upset.
And the Blackhawks on their road jersey.
Classic yeah. So yeah, I mean, I could see not loving the Stars jersey, but I agree. It seems like a weird one to hate, other than if you're just trying to be contrarian, or you just hate that so many people like it when you think it's mediocre, so it drives you to like it even less. But yeah, that's always been a hard opinion for me to understand as well.
And that's just the home and aways. I love the alternate, but I can fully understand why people don't. It's very much the hit or miss, but yeah.
Classic Bpoe in a black jersey when everyone else doesn't.
I'm actually pretty meh on their jersey, on their alternate, to be honest. That they're not wearing it in the playoffs.
Again,
so it doesn't...
the alternate, I love it, but I understand why people don't. So,
right, 100%. Speaking of alternates in the playoffs, that brings us to our next series, which is the Oilers versus the Kings. I don't think it's been officially announced, but all of the Oilers social media branding, their Twitter picture, for example, is the two-color navy and orange logo on their alternate. All of their schedule images and such have had the alternate in the images. Obviously, they wore their alternate last year in the playoffs. So I would be very confident in saying we will see the Oilers alternate versus the Kings. But before we talk about that, let's talk about the two teams. So obviously the Oilers are led by their best players, and that would be Warren Fogle and Derek Brassard and Zach Kassian, who make up a really strong first line there. We got some just kind of roster fillers like Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, who are just kind of along for the ride. Sorry, I got that backwards. McDavid and Draisaitl, obvious jokes aside, are the name of the game here, and arguably the full team. Mike Smith, who has decided that he's an NHL goalie in the past 2 weeks, and became a very good fantasy streamer candidate for me in the last couple of weeks. So thank you for that. I hope that you no longer play good hockey. A decor that is odd, maybe is the best way to describe it. Cody Ceci, Duncan Keith, Chris Russell, Tyson Barrie. It feels like
I'm looking at this decor, and that is weird.
It feels
It's
like
like you took a good decor from 2012.
right. It feels like you asked your dad to just name four consecutive random NHL defensemen of the past decade. So definitely an interesting team. And then the Kings, who all are also an interesting identity team, where you have, your kind of ruins of the previous regime of the Cup team with Kopitar and Dustin Brown still sticking around. Whereas you also have the youth movement coming in. You have Adrian Kempe, their all-star from this season, Alex Iafallo, Quentin Byfield playing, coming up and playing the NHL full-time. Lots of youth there. Philip Deneau, yeah, I forgot to mention him. Big story here, obviously, Drew Doughty not available, at least for the first round, I think, for the whole playoffs, if I recall. So obviously it's not fun to not have your best defenseman. And then the tandem of Cal Peterson and Jonathan Quick on the back end, who I would trust more than Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen. But, playoff goaltending is about getting hot at the right time, more than it is about anything else. And Mike Smith seems to be doing just that. Looking at the numbers, Kings have the defensive advantage. Oilers, surprise, surprise, have the offensive advantage, and then goaltending is pretty much a wash. So I think it comes down to, can the Kings defense contain Draisaitl and McKinnon, and all the pieces around them? McDavid, yeah, that too.
You said McKinnon.
I suppose McKinnon can still play with the Avs.
Now imagine if McKinnon was on this Oilers team. Ooh.
No, thank you. I forgot we didn't even mention Nazem Kadri's season when we talked about the.
True.
Oh yeah.
Now, will he be suspended in the first round again? Is the question.
Yeah, right. Nashville.
Who knows? Probably.
Maybe he's the one giving Nashville all those power plays in our hypothetical situation.
Everyone in the team gets COVID except for Nazem Kadri.
Right.
Who gets suspended.
So certainly not a fun jersey matchup here, but probably a fun hockey matchup, I would say.
Yeah. I think the script for this one has completely flipped in the last 2 weeks. If you asked me 2 weeks ago, I would have said probably Kings. I think they have a good youth movement, a good forward core, and a fantastic leader on defense in Drew Doughty. Meanwhile, the Oilers haven't found a goalie. Well, in the past 2 weeks, the Oilers have had Mike Smith become a goalie and Drew Doughty become injured. So I think the Oilers take this. I think if it's been played almost any other time in the year, it would have been Kings. But right now, I'm taking the Oilers.
Yeah, I feel like this one's probably closer than, I don't know what people are saying about it, but probably closer than people might think, and probably closer than I even think, because admittedly the Kings are, fairly under the radar for me. I don't follow the West too much, and the Kings, I don't know how many people expected them to be in the playoffs this year, especially as not a wild card team. But the Oilers kind of had, an up at the early season and then kind of down for a little bit, and then they got a new coach and they went right back up again. They got Evander Kane, who, personal issues aside, has been a good hockey player for them, as a good ad. So I'm going to say the Oilers, especially if, Drew Doughty is out and everything. That's certainly not going to help the Kings' case.
Yeah, I think obviously the Oilers, it's hard to bet against Connor McDavid. It's hard to bet against Leon Draisaitl.
It's not that hard considering that they've won one round
that's
since
what
they've been here.
Yeah, they won the first round in 2017, and that is, they've made the playoffs 3 times in Connor McDavid's career. The last
to clarify, no fault of their own.
Correct.
They just have nothing else. Like, if one of McDavid or Draisaitl gets injured, hopefully they don't, but if they do, this series is almost over.
Gets injured, it hits a rut. Even the best players, even Connor McDavid, even Leon Draisaitl, do hit lulls and do not score for 4 games at a time. And if you have nothing else around you, 4 games is the duration of a series. I think the Oilers definitely have the edge, but I think also when you're looking at 8 matchups, you got to pick an upset eventually, and I think this is one of mine. I think this is one that has a lot of upset potential. We talked about, do those top players have some kind of challenge, whether it's an injury, whether it's just a struggle to score, etc. Does Mike Smith remember he's Mike Smith and not whoever he has been masquerading as for the past 2 weeks? There's a number of variables that I feel like the Oilers have a lot higher variance of the team they could be, whereas the Kings, I think, have a lower floor, higher ceiling, or sorry, higher floor, lower ceiling would be the way to properly say it. And I think the Dustin Brown factor is there. He's announced that he's going to retire at the conclusion of this season, so I think there's always a drive to play for your own, to give him a proper send off. I don't see the Kings going on a deep run, but I think there's a chance here to make some noise. I think they're a fun young team, and I think this is the right time for those young guys to gain some experience and to have this outcome and this experience itself drive their young careers in the future. So I'm excited for this one from a hockey perspective.
Now I know Kopitar gave Brown the captaincy for their last game. Is that staying for the playoffs?
I doubt it. But yeah, that was a cool touch that Dustin Brown got to wear the captain's C in his last regular season game of the King. Also, very weird that in Dustin Brown's last regular season jersey, it was the Kings versus the Canucks, and neither of them were wearing their normal jerseys. The Kings were wearing their alternate jersey that was just introduced this season, and the Canucks were wearing their black skate jersey for the first time this season on the very last game of the season. So definitely like a weird jersey trivia fact for posterity's sake on that one. But I was seeing images of that game, and I kind of had to do a double take on it.
I had no idea the Canucks even wore those. That's really weird for them to bring it out for this. I mean, if you're going to wear it against any jersey, why not the other 90s one? But
yeah, I mean, it's cool from a fan appreciation night sort of perspective, but I think it's ridiculous to have an alternate jersey that you only wear for one game. I'm looking at you, Vancouver. I'm looking at you, Toronto. They're both cool jerseys. I'm, for the most part, glad they exist, but there's no need to have a jersey to wear it one.
Yeah, that's right. The Leafs only wore that one once, huh?
Yep.
Granted, that one's, going to be sticking around as far as I know and would expect.
But who knows if it's for more than 1 year. Is that going to be their game jersey every year and that's it? Who knows? I mean, great from a marketing perspective because a lot of them were purchased, but, a little bit frustrating from a, actual on-ice content perspective. Speaking of jerseys, as we mentioned, the Oilers appear to be wearing their alternate jersey, which I'm sure we are all very excited about. The Kings are not wearing their alternate jersey, which is probably for the worst. So this certainly a contender for worst matchup out there.
I think it runs away with it pretty easily.
That Edmonton at home matchup is going to be brutal and so little color.
So bad.
I would argue that the only other matchup that's if we just talk about one specific, game, the Oilers being at home is probably only rivaled by Carolina at home since they're wearing their alternates.
Honestly, even
the Bruins have so much black in their road jersey, but I think the Bruins have a better road.
Even then, the Bruins road jersey is actually pretty nice. I like it.
Right.
It's not bad. I wish it had more color, but yeah.
I mean, I go farther. I think Oilers alternate against Kings away is one of the worst jersey matchups possible in the NHL. Playoffs aside, a borderline all navy jersey versus a jersey where the only color is black. Goodness. The only worst would be something like the Hawks alternate, which is all black and white versus a black and white jersey, but but then even at least there's some consistency between the black. It's one of those things if you wore a black shirt with navy pants, you look like a yahoo, and you're gonna get that, all series long between these two teams. This is not exciting, and per the rumblings, we might never see the Oilers around home again. Maybe it sticks around as an alternate, but it sounds like they're switching to I believe it's rumored the classic Royal Blues, if I'm not mistaken. So this would be really stinky if we walk away from those orange jerseys, which admittedly, have a mixed bag of opinions, I feel like, overall. But I know we here, for the most part, like them. I'm not sure about you, Burkus, but I know me and Brendan do.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a big bag of poop as far as jerseys go. I hope the Oilers lose because I don't want to see this alternate ever again. I think it's one of the worst jerseys in the NHL, to be honest. So for that alone, I think I'm going to put the Kings over them in a jersey perspective as well as a hockey perspective.
From a jersey perspective, I'm giving it to the Oilers in the most boring 7-game jersey series ever, just because their road jersey is really nice.
Yeah, I think if I had to rank the 4 jerseys, it'd be Oilers away, Kings home, Oilers alt. But then, it's hard. And I think it just comes down to that the Oilers have a better logo.
That's also a good point, yeah.
I'll give it that.
I'm guessing Oilers by a smidge. And like said, the saddest, like Oilers game 7, negative 4th overtime.
Right.
So now I pick the games.
Okay, I see. So 4 for Colorado, 7 for this one, 7 for that one, and begrudgingly 7 for that one.
Also, for completely different reasons.
How do you do like a negative? Like, how do you do like a game 1, like a negative 3rd over?
Just flip a coin to pick the winner. I don't want to watch these games. All right. So, do we want to continue with first round predictions, or do we want to finish out the Western Conference jersey bracket? What do we think?
I think we can do the first round in the East, and then just do all the jerseys.
Let's do it
all at once.
Awesome. Let's keep on rolling. So top right corner of the bracket, we have
so much for that whole let's not have a 2-hour episode thing. We're halfway through and did the West, and we're an hour in.
I thought this was going to be short. This is a mess.
Me too. But hey, whatever. Bonus content, I guess. Content. Again, it'll make up for our month absence from posting a podcast.
So the President's Trophy winning matchup, obviously involving the Washington Capitals. Surprise, surprise, they're not the President's Trophy this year. I feel like that was the foregone conclusion for, the past, at least, a 2-3 year period here, 4 or 5 years.
Until the Tampa Bay Lightning happened.
Huh?
Up until the Tampa Bay Lightning happened.
Exactly. Yeah, they kind of passed that torch. But the Capitals, are the team here barely squeaking into the playoffs in the East, having to face the best.
Time out. They did not barely squeak into the playoffs. They got into by like 20 points at least.
Fair.
Like
they're
nobody in the East barely squeaked in. This was the first year ever that every team in the East has had 100 points.
And like this thing was decided back in December at least,
if not sooner.
The Florida Panthers 5v5 goals for number 1, 5v5 expected goals for number 1, 5v5 Corsi goals for number 1, power play goals 6, finishing 6, the most potent offense out there. Certainly smooths off in the back end, but dominating the Capitals here in advanced stats, winning 7 out of the 10 categories. So they're the President's Trophy winners for a reason. A team that already had Alex Barkov. They have Jonathan Huberdeau, potentially a Hart candidate, depending on who you ask. If you ask his agent, Alan Walsh, certainly a Hart candidate, Hart favorite, of course. But then they go and add one of the bigger pieces, perhaps the biggest piece, trade deadline with Claude Giroux to that already potent offense. Added Ben Sherrod as well, which advanced stats don't like, but it's a body. Then you have Sergei Bobrovsky, who has also remembered how to be an elite goaltender, and the young Spencer Knight. Big story, obviously, Aaron Ekblad being out, I believe, for the entire first round as well. He's been out for a while, but I think he's on the bubble of potentially being able to come back. So if you get Aaron Ekblad thrown into this lineup as well, goodness. Meanwhile, on the other side of things, the Washington Capitals, of course, Alexander Ovechkin, Kuznetsov, Penguins legend Connor Sheary, who still just absolutely tears me up to see do well for the Capitals, along with Justin Schultz, of course.
Penguins legend Justin Schultz. I was about to say Penguins legend Daniel Sprong, but he's in Seattle now.
Not anymore. Seattle, yeah, along with Penguins legend Jared Pouliot in Seattle, and Jared McCann and Brandon Tatum, the Seattle Penguins. But Tom Wilson,
it's like the Panthers with former Blue Jackets,
right? Tom Wilson, if he doesn't get suspended, Nick Backstrom, Marcus Johansson. So quality team here as well. Back end, of course, in goal, Ilya Samsonov and Seattle Kraken legend Vitek Vanacek, who they selected in the expansion draft and then promptly traded directly back to the Capitals. So lots of fun there. So Capitals certainly seem to be on the downswing in terms of their cup window, whereas the Panthers are, as in their cup window as they have ever been and as any team has ever been, really, buying away, I would say, the favorite out of the East for sure, if not the favorite overall. What do we think? Any outside capability here out of the aging Capitals?
I don't really think so. Florida's just been a tank this year. And again, like you said, they added Claude Giroux at the deadline of all people. So that just it's yeah. The Capitals aren't a bad team by any means. Again, every team in this conference hit 100 points over the season.
Right.
But yeah, it's not particularly close, I don't think. They would just need a monster series out of Ovechkin, the Capitals, I think, to have even a chance. And some stellar goaltending, which they don't necessarily have. Maybe, but not really. It's not
potential,
quite, 2016, 17, 18 Braden Holtby type of goaltending.
Yeah, it's a big uphill battle. I think this is another one where if there's a slam dunk in the East, there's really only one category for it, or one candidate for it, and that's this one. I think this one is fairly cut and dry, unless Matt has any dissenting opinions over there.
Nope.
Perfect. Love it. All right. This one I'm sure will be equally compelling on the jersey side. A lot of red. Red, navy, and white is the name of the game. We get a little bit of gold coming from the Panthers. But really not a lot to go on there. I don't even think it's worth talking about. I think it's going to be a Panthers sweep on the ice and on the backs of the players as well. I don't think
I'm just going to put it down because I would be shocked if
right.
any of us disagree.
Yeah, no. I guess congrats, Washington. You have the better shoulder patch. That's about it.
I don't even necessarily. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's not as close, or it's actually fairly close, or a lot closer than I think other people would think, though. The Panthers have, I think, a solid, arm, shoulder patch thing. It's not really a shoulder patch.
I think, surprisingly, overall, though, this jersey matchup is going to be enjoyable. For teams that have
the color matchup will look really nice, I think.
Yeah, it will look really nice. And I realized we never did we never did which matchup is better in the Pacific Division, but clearly it's going to be Dallas Calgary over.
Yeah, arguably the best versus arguably the worst. Not close.
Right, exactly. So I think this one is definitely a positive matchup, but it's clearly driven by the Florida jerseys. So from two teams that wear similar colors to two teams that wear the same colors and nearly the same.
Tampa has black in the number outlines.
Okay, Chris Romero.
Hey, don't you forget that they also have black in the outline of the lightning bolt on the pants.
I don't want to hear it. Don't forget that don't forget that the Maple Leafs have an entire black jersey. Okay, they're both teams are blue, white, and black. All right, I don't want this. But the Leafs and the Lightning, which, as Bpoe mentioned earlier, perhaps the most compelling series for a lot of reasons.
You're getting a meme out of this either way.
Oh yeah, Toronto having the best season of their history. They're not a person. Tampa coming off back-to-back Stanley Cups, looking really good still. Having Steven Stamkos, who you'll look to be on the decline, coming back and having his best season ever. Vasilevsky, who stumbled out of the gate, regaining. Braden Point getting older, getting better. Just absolute every time I look at the Tampa Bay Lightning roster, I am just upset by their defense. And you have
Yeah.
their left side, Victor Hedman, Ryan McDonough, Mikhail Sergachev on the third line. Absolutely ridiculous. Eric Cernak, Cal Foote on the young side. And those guys are their extra guys. I mean, they have such stellar defense. And
That's
then
like
you throw
the
on
Pens in 2016 and 17 with Phil Kessel on the third line.
right. I was going to say the Pens defense wasn't good, but yeah, comparatively offense to defense, yeah. And then you still have Stamkos, Kucherov, Braden Point picking up Nick Paul from the Senators, Cirelli, Killorn picking up Brandon Hagel from the Blue Jackets. It's a very sneakily good.
Hold up. What did you just say?
What, Brandon Hagel from the Blackhawks?
Okay, I thought you said from the Blue Jackets.
No, I'm pretty damn certain you said Blue Jackets. I heard Blue Jackets too.
And arguably one of the
we screwed up the deadline bad,
right? Perhaps the most potent blue or fourth line in the playoffs with Patrick Maroon, Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, and Corey Perry on the fourth line. Lots of skill there and just gonna be a pain to play against. If you want to make a 7-game series feel like 70, you ice those guys, quite a bit down the stretch.
Toronto's fourth line ain't too easy to play against either. They're what? Simmons and who's their center?
Depending on what they want to do, or Colin Blackwell, who they got in the Mark Giordano trade deadline acquisition. Obviously, lots of intrigue here too. Austin Matthews, phenomenal, 60-goal season. Mitch Marner, just shy of 100 points. Didn't play his last game. Had a chance to break it if he got 3 points in that last game. He didn't play. John Tavares on the second line. Very Penguins-esque when you have a 1-2 punch of Matthews, Tavares. Willie Nylander on the second line. Ilya Mikheyev, who's had a resurgence season. That fourth line, Simmons, Blackwell, Spezza, veteran guys who know how to get in there. Morgan Riley, Ilya Labushkin, underrated defensive acquisition there to shore up things on the right side. Jake Muzzin, TJ Brody, the Mark Giordano pickup, who is fitting phenomenally. Really shoring up that decor. Goaltending, which was once, the strength, arguably Vezina candidate Jack Campbell, the first half of the season, really hitting a wall in the second half. Then getting injured, coming back. Peter Mrazek, a non-option, injured now. So Eric Shelgren is now the backup for the playoffs. So certainly some question marks there. So is Toronto's offense, is their upgraded defense strong enough to break the curse? Are they going to finally win the first round? From the advanced stats perspective, surprisingly, Leafs win every offensive category, win all but one defensive category, lose goaltending still, but pretty clear dominance up front in terms of advanced stats. Playoff hockey, a little bit different. From regular season hockey. We see that. We see that in the Leafs. We see that in the Lightning. Leafs seem to shut it down. Lightning seem to turn it on. So what do we think? Can the Leafs break the curse? Does the Lightning's fatigue from having to play 2 full playoff series, and even this was a back-to-back Stanley Cup, but it's even a tighter one than usual. They had to win that first cup in what was it, August, September, and then come back and win one. But they're 2 years away from that first cup. So certainly a lot of miles that those tires have run on there. So what do we think? Is it going to be the blue and white team with the city that starts with a T, or is it going to be the blue and white team with the city that starts with a T?
I think it's going to be the blue and the white team from the city that starts with T that has a center. There has a captain who wears number 91 that was drafted first overall.
Oh gosh, I hate it.
Aren't they back-to-back years too?
I think so. Wasn't it? Was it 8-9?
Oh gosh, I was thinking Matthews and Tavares for a second. I was like, they're nowhere.
I thought it was 9-10.
It might have been.
That's why.
Because Patrick Kane was 2008, right?
Okay, yeah, I think you're right.
Tavares. John Tavares, yeah, first overall in 2009. And picked after him, the one and only Victor Hedman. And then Steven Stamkos. 2008, Steven Stamkos
Okay,
was
Stamkos
first.
was 8.
Oh.
So was Kane
All about
7?
Saudi.
Kane would have been 7 then, yeah.
I think so, yeah. And then Eric Johnson, 2006,
Oof.
I believe.
Yeah, yikes.
That was a weak draft because
Yeah.
I remember that was 2003 was the year where we fucked up Kopitar.
2003 was like deep.
Yeah, 2003 was one of the best drafts ever. 2006 might have been a weaker one, but
What year was Anze Kopitar drafted? Because I remember the Blue Jackets drafted the one and only Gilbert Brule above Anze Kopitar because our GM, against the advice of our scouting director.
Anze Kopitar 2005.
Okay, that's the year that we fucked up. But anyways, I think this is about as close as a series as you can get. These are both offensive firepowers. Defensively, they're really good. And if Jack Campbell is on, the goalie pending's about damn even. I think the thing that separates the series is that the Toronto Maple Leafs are the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Tampa Bay Lightning are the Tampa Bay Lightning. So I think it's going to be Lightning in 7, just because these teams are just, one of them is the epitome of clutch and the other one is the Toronto Maple Leafs.
my pick is 100% bias because it's such a close matchup that I don't have much else to go on. The Leafs are great. Tampa is great. One of them, again, is the opposite of clutch, and one of them has been. But as Justin mentioned, I was going to bring it up either way. Tampa has had some hard miles on them from these back-to-back cups, and it's pretty much what happened with the Penguins, I think, going into 2018 against the Capitals, where it's just those back-to-back, cup runs really wear on a team because it's a lot of extra hockey to play. And especially, it's such a unique situation with the Lightning having the two so close by. Granted, they had a pretty long break before the playoffs in 2020 because of the COVID shutdown, but still, that's a lot of extra hockey. And from what I do know, again, I'm a big Steve Dangle podcast fan. I follow that a little bit. I'm behind a bit, but from what I've seen from the Leafs, they seem to have a different mindset coming into this year. I think that, those guys are a lot more confident in this Leafs team. They think it's a lot more complete than previous years with, additions like Bunting and David Kampf and Andre Kasha if he's playing. So I'm going Leafs in 6 or 7, but I would absolutely not be surprised if it goes the other way.
Yeah, I think you look at the Leafs, and obviously they're a fun team to meme on, and to laugh about the Leafs losing. But you look at their playoff history, right? 2013, that sucks. Blowing that 3-goal lead to Boston in the third, that's something to be embarrassed about. They didn't go to the playoffs for 3 years after that.
And nobody was really expecting the Leafs in the playoffs that year either way, too.
Right.
It was the lockout season.
It's like they shouldn't have won that season. They shouldn't have won that series, but they almost did.
They shouldn't have been in the playoffs, probably.
Right. 2017, lose to the Capitals in a series again where, for the most part, you're just happy to be there. 2018, lose to the Bruins, great team. 2019, lose to the Bruins, great team. 2020, lose to the Blue Jackets in the qualifying round in a very close series. 2021, after losing, 4 straight first rounds, losing to the Canadiens in the biggest, slam dunk series you could ask for. That hurts. That's upsetting. And I think that's the difference is, for the most part, the Leafs' losses, though funny because they have been one after the other and so consistent, are not that, embarrassing when you take them part and parcel. Like, they're series that they should have lost most of the time versus last year.
Or at least, it's not surprising that they lost.
Right. Where last year, that's embarrassing. That'll piss you off for 82 games and plus.
And even so the Columbus one, should they have won that one? Probably. But I arguably give them a pass because of the weird COVID season thing.
Right.
So
it's like the Penguins should not have lost to the Canadiens, but I'm even not upset about it now as a Pens fan. So I think the Leafs do have a different feel, as Brendan mentioned, and I think too, you can't do a thing forever. You can't win forever. You can't lose forever. And I think you have both of those setting up here. You have the Leafs who do lose forever, and you have the Lightning who, win forever. But that's not sustainable. And, maybe it's not this year that either of those things happen, but it has to happen eventually. And that's where I want to put my money is I think, it has to happen eventually. And, you're never going to face a team that's played this much this recently. This is the most a team has played an amount of games in this amount of time with the Lightning. And so, though they're a great team, I think that factors in. There's a reason the Penguins struggled to three-peat, and that drives me here as well. I don't want the Lightning to three-peat because I don't want them to top the Penguins of 16-17. But, even memes aside, even, personal bias coming from a Leafs-loving family aside and being a Steve Dangle podcast fan myself, I do think the Leafs have the edge here. Do I expect them to win 100 times out of 100? Not a chance. But I do think they have the edge in my book. But I think this will be a extremely fun series to watch.
And I think, too, there was a recent quote, I think it was Wayne Simmons, who said, about talking about the difference between last year and this year, is that this year they don't want to lose. And so I do wonder, considering, I don't know if either of you guys watched the All or Nothing Amazon documentary from last year, but I think it was Martyr and Matthews in the locker room after the Canadians lost, just looking absolutely devastated. And as we mentioned, that's the only one that's really arguably that embarrassing, all things considered. All the other ones were like, okay, I see how you lost this one, even if it's, funny. I wonder if that one definitely, struck more of a nerve with the players and them being older now as well, more mature. So.
Yeah, and those teams that lost to Boston, that's not this team. Like,
not
those
even
players.
Close. Yeah.
I don't think there's even more than 3 or 4 players from that team still on the Leafs. So this one will be a fun one to watch. From a Jersey perspective, a much less fun one to watch. Burkus, I'll let you start because I know you're gonna stir the pot a little bit on this one.
Yeah, I think this is gonna be. I don't know if it's gonna be good, but I think it's gonna be interesting to watch aesthetically. I think the fact that these two jerseys are so similar might actually be really beneficial to them. I don't know. I feel like this has the potential to be a really good looking series. I don't think it's going to nearly top Calgary, Dallas, or Pittsburgh, New York, but yeah, I think it's going to be pretty good. Now, as for who I give the edge to, I think I got to do Toronto just because that is their classic look that the Lightning stole. It isn't like the Leafs stole the Lightning's thing. So I think I'm taking the Leafs in, I don't know, 6.
I honestly think I agree with Burkus in just about every aspect there. I think, the Lightning's jerseys are a little bit overhated because they do look so similar to the Leafs, and arguably, for good reason. I think in a vacuum they still look fine, and having them match up against each other, as long as you like the color blue, you're gonna have a good time. And I do like the color blue personally, but you can't really give the matchup to the Lightning because it's the Leafs classic look, and if the Lightning did steal anything, it's these Leafs jerseys. And did they or did they not? I don't know, but it's very similar, and it's just the Leafs classic look again. And even if the two looks I think had the same history, I think the Leafs one is still better, even if just for the logo.
Yeah.
And shout out to the Leafs for like we mentioned with the Stars, doing a jersey in the modern era and making it so classic. Brendan, just then you were saying it's a classic jersey, but realistically, this jersey is.
I mean, in its current form, it's new, but it does pull from a lot of classic elements that they've had.
Which I think the Leafs do better than anyone. They have had a surprising number of different looks since their inception with the original 6, actually before the original 6 even. But every jersey has looked, extremely Leafs. In terms of every primary jersey, you can get into whether Stadium Series and Centennial and one-off alternate kind of things count. But they're a team that is constantly developing their look and trying new things, even as a storied franchise, and I think that's super cool. But yeah, Leafs have the edge here in jerseys, no questions asked. But yeah, will still be a good look, 100%. Moving right along to the next matchup, the other division champion in the East, the Carolina Hurricanes, who are without goaltender Frederik Andersen, likely for the entire first round, potentially beyond. So Antti Ranta will guard the pipes for this first round matchup against the Boston Bruins, who, gosh, if there's a team that's walking out of their cup window, it's got to be Boston. The core is getting older. I mean, Bergeron is still a silver fox, and absolutely incredible.
Bergeron's 2003 draft, and so is Getzlaf, who just retired, and
Right.
Dustin Brown, who's about to retire, and
right. So you've got this is probably the last chance, if not the second to last chance for this group to get it done. There's speculation of whether Bergeron is even going to be in the NHL next year. He's certainly good enough, but there comes a point where do you want to keep putting your body under that toll? So yeah, definitely a lot of intrigue from Boston on that, and Jake DeBrusk coming out of his shell and actually playing like a first round pick all of a sudden. A defense that nowhere resembles the Boston Bruins. No Torrey Krug, no Zdeno Chara, which obviously has been a thing for a couple years, but still doesn't feel right. Hampus Lindholm pick up at the deadline, which could be huge. No Tuukka Rask again. So definitely you see the Bruins core from their past fading away. And this new group of admittedly very skilled players still there, but certainly a different team than we've seen from the Bruins of the past, just like we mentioned with the Leafs. The teams that played in that, ever alluded to series do not exist in any capacity anymore, versus the Hurricanes, which are a team that never seems to live up to their potential. But obviously led by Sebastian Aho.
They made the conference final in 2019.
Yeah, but even then, I feel like they're a team that feels like it's this is their year every year. It feels like the Avs to me, at least personally.
I almost feel like it's been like that ever since 2019, and 2019 was like,
right.
Oh wow, they made the conference final?
Exactly. Yeah. So, and interesting defensive reshuffling on the back end this offseason, losing Dougie Hamilton, picking up Tony DeAngelo, picking up Ethan Bear, Ian Cole. So definitely replacement by committee there. Frederik Andersen has, been an absolute stunner coming out of Toronto and being their starter. So it'll be interesting to see how they can play in his absence. So certainly opens up the matchup quite a bit. Hurricanes dominate in terms of defense on the advanced statistics, dominate in terms of offense, dominate in terms of goaltending. But again, that assumes Frederik Andersen, which is not going to happen. So goaltending is perhaps the most important position in the playoffs. We saw that in the Penguins-Isles series last year, where despite the Penguins controlling, much to our chagrin, Tristan Jarry did what he did.
The hell out of that series.
So it'll be interesting to see if Antti Ranta can, having been a starter in the past, can take that role in the playoffs and run with it, or is that hole going to provide or going to prove costly against the Bruins?
I think the loss of Frederik Andersen hurts the Hurricanes a lot. I think this would have been a 4 or 5 game series. I think now this goes to 7. But I still think the Hurricanes are going to get it done because, one, I still like Antti Ranta as their goalie. And if you're going to have a team to go against with a weaker goalie, Boston is probably that team because their goalies are Jeremy Swayman and Linus Ullmark, who have been pretty good this season. I would say are roughly on the same level as Antti Ranta. And then you got advantage on offense. You got advantage on defense. So I'm still picking the Canes for this. I think it's going to be a good series. I think it's going to go a while. But I still see Carolina taking it.
I don't know if it's, again, my bias, and I think I have kind of latched onto the Hurricanes as a team that I like as like a kind of third favorite, partly because of their jerseys that they aren't wearing, and partly because I have a I think
fun atmosphere.
I've told it on the podcast before, my story from 2019, and really having fun with that Game 7 against the Capitals and Brock McGinn scoring that winner. So I think
did Pittsburgh Penguin, bro.
Yes. From that, I've kind of latched onto the Canes as a third team, so maybe it's my bias, but I was surprised to see some people picking Boston in this series. Even just on offense, I think the Canes have a huge advantage. A lot of young talent, and I don't know if I'm looking at daily faceoff. I don't know if the lines are just different because like last game of the season locked into the playoffs.
Yeah.
I've seen a couple of those where it's like some very obvious players that should be playing aren't in there. But Kotkaniemi and Natchez are on the fourth line.
Which
that's
is
pretty
accurate.
damn good. So I'm giving this one to the Canes personally. I think the Bruins, like you said, are really going out of their window. Very similar to the Capitals and arguably the Penguins, depending on what they do this year, which we'll get to. But yeah, I mean, I guess it wouldn't be the biggest shocker if the Bruins pulled something because they are still the Bruins. But at the same time, the Canes are just, I think, too good.
Give me the Boston Bruins in the first round. I think if Frederik Andersen is in the net, this is a completely different series. But if I learned anything last year as a Penguins fans, it's that goaltending is the name of the game, and I don't trust Antti Raanta to the same level that I would Frederik Andersen. And I think that opens a door that this Bruin team knows where they're at, and they know that if they want to do it with this group, it's now or never at this point. Noted they've done it. But if they want to do it again with this group, it's now or never. So I think there's going to be that extra fuel in the tank there. I think Bruins will take them to Game 7. I think the Hurricanes will be up 4-1 with about 8 minutes to go. And then I think the Bruins will score 3 goals in the last 8 minutes. And then we'll be joking about the Hurricanes for the next decade or two. That's
now specifically Freddie Andersen. I didn't even realize he was out. Is he going to be back in the first round at all, or no?
He shouldn't be.
I believe, if I read somewhere, the timeline is like 5 weeks.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And he's out for the first 2 rounds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah. So he's not an option.
Spoilers, I don't think the Canes are getting past either the Rangers or Penguins.
There you go. I don't think they're getting past the Bruins. So
I'm still saying Canes, but yeah, having Andersen out definitely hurts their chances unless Antti Raanta does really fill that hole.
The most up in the air. Like if Antti Raanta steps in and fills that gap, done deal. If is the big question mark, obviously, and if he doesn't, that's a big door for the Bruins to walk through and get into the second round. From a jersey perspective. Again, the Hurricanes have hurricaned and are wearing their black alternate that we all adore in the first round. So I'm sure this will be an easy conversation, and we'll see the Hurricanes step into the second round with their phenomenal black alternate that is very good and everyone has always loved, and I'm not being paid to say this.
Yeah, Justin does not have a gun to his head, and neither do I. The black alternate is amazing. I really enjoy it. And yeah, no, Boston.
I think this is okay. I was gonna say a Carolina sweep if they're wearing their home jersey, but Boston's jerseys are too good to say it's a sweep. But Carolina, I think, wins this for me if they're wearing that home jersey because it again is like Minnesota's one of my favorite home jerseys in the league, and the road isn't as good, but I still like it. I think more than a lot of people do, but with wearing that alternate, which is decidedly not good. Boston is the more consistent set, even though I think I prefer Carolina's road to Boston's road just because it's more colorful. Again, Boston just has more consistency in terms of they both look good versus Carolina having a pretty good a road versus a, oh my god, why home.
And at this point, it's a guess as to what equipment the Hurricanes will wear for the playoffs.
That's a good point.
Very experimenting in recent weeks.
Their road jersey is definitely a little worse with the black equipment, but to match that
but not bad.
Alternate, it's not bad, but it's definitely worse. It wouldn't surprise me if they wear that.
Now,
their alternate.
I know
there's
a 2 jersey rule. Is there also you have to keep the same equipment rule, or are they able to switch back and forth between?
I have absolutely.
I don't think so because the Penguins wore the alternates in 2016, and I'm assuming they didn't wear the Vegas gold gloves with it. So,
well, no, I'm assuming the equipment also stays like as part of the uniform.
I would assume.
So, like, are they able to flip, like, basically have 3 options with alternate away with black?
Huh. I don't know.
Are they able to use that?
I don't know if this one's ever really come up. That'll be interesting to see if it does come up.
Yeah, I would imagine it wouldn't happen because when is the NHL ever interesting more than they have to be or absolutely
that is fair.
So I would imagine it won't come up, but I would like to see that come up, just for the sake of, variety. But yeah, if like Brendan said, if the Canes were wearing their home, which is top 5 in the league, easy, I would say. It's a slam dunk for them, but since they're not, it's everything changed. It's a similar situation. If Anderson plays, it seems like a slam dunk for the Canes. He's not. He took the red jersey with him apparently, and he needs it at his rehab. And they can't use it. So red for blood, because that's totally the type of injury he had. I don't even remember what injury he was, but I'm imagining
it's like sprained something,
pulled something. A goalie injury, exactly. But yeah, Bruins take this one from a jersey perspective.
Slight tangent, sort of. I agree with you that the NHL has bounds and leaps to go to be actually interested in the league and not just, saying that they want to be interesting, and then as soon as a player says something interesting, they're like, why did you do that? But I honestly really like the 2 jerseys in the playoffs rule that they have, as opposed to like the NBA.
I do.
Just you wear whatever whenever. Granted, teams clearly make the wrong decision sometimes, but I definitely like the rule in concept of, being consistent through the playoffs.
I think
call me old and boring, but like, forget 2 jersey rule. You need to wear your primaries in the playoffs. I don't want to hear any. Like, I don't want any shenanigans. I'm glad that the Penguins wore their alternate in 2006 because it's a better jersey. Realistically, I think the Penguins should have won. 2016. Sorry, yeah.
I honestly wasn't going to say anything until Burkus looked all confused because I knew what you were trying to say.
Really, that should have won their Vegas gold home that year too.
I think it makes more sense in the event that a team is changing to that jersey full time, and hopefully that's not the case for either of the ones that happened this year. But just
that was me knocking on wood.
Yeah, I was gonna say, picking a random old alternate, over your home, I'd agree. Just go home and away.
Just go home.
I agree on you have to do home and alt, but I also wouldn't mind a 2 jerseys per series. So, like, say if the Bruins actually had home ice advantage and the Canes won in 7, but they lost all of their home games, I think they should be able to switch to their red jersey.
That's kind of cool. I like that.
That would be interesting, especially in a case like Vegas, who isn't in the playoffs this year, but they have essentially, at least this year, essentially the same jersey 3 times in different colors.
Right.
So,
yeah. That could be cool. I like that. I like that.
I agree there should be a limitation. I just wouldn't mind making it more strict, or loosening it up.
Yeah.
I do agree you shouldn't be able to go both.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Our last series of the first round is obviously the one everyone's going to be watching. Clearly the least complicated one. The Penguins are going to win in 4 games, and there's going to be no concern whatsoever because the Penguins are God's gift to hockey. So I
feel like out of the 3 of us in this podcast, 2 of us are going to be watching it with earnest, and the other one with hatred towards one of the teams, potentially.
I honestly don't really watch the playoffs too much outside of the Blue Jackets.
Okay.
Wow. Like up until like the conference finals, where it's like 1 game a night. And I'm like, I don't have to decide.
Honestly, I'm kind of with you there, unless I have like a second team to root for, like the Leafs or the Hurricanes, and depending on what year it is.
Same.
The Leafs haven't really been that for me, but
directly attached to me. I get so sucked in. It's ridiculous. I love it. But the Rangers obviously are anchored on the back end by Shesterkin. I forgot his name for a second. Should be a slam dunk
Henrik
for the
Lundqvist. I mean, Igor Shesterkin.
right thing. It's just like the Predators have Pekka Saros. I forgot Pekka Rinne's name for a second. My apologies, Nashville fans. But the Rangers are definitely a team that, you know, their bread and butter is their goaltending, as it has always been. Isn't it frustrating when there's a team in your division, and this goes for all of us since we all like Metro teams, but there's a team in your division that has someone like Henrik Lundqvist, and it's like, oh my gosh, we gotta play Henrik Lundqvist, and it's like, oh great, he's retiring. Finally, we don't have to deal with the Rangers and their goaltending. And then walks Igor Shesterkin, hey guys, how's it going? I'm gonna be.
See, that's better. What I thought was gonna happen with us, like. Y'all being like, oh, we don't have to deal with Bobrovsky, and Merzlikins is like, hi guys, I'm Elvis Merzlikins. I'm here to ruin your day and also be awesome. But I mean, he's fun as hell, but not quite there yet. But I have hope. Yeah. I think he'll develop well. Anyways, so, yeah. I think I know you guys are both going to pick the Pen, so I'm going to be the Rangers advocate here. I think of
you forget series, I always bet against the Pens. So
it's true. I'm going to be the Rangers advocate because I do actually think they're going to win. Aside from my hatred of I was going to say the city of Pittsburgh, but I actually really like the city of Pittsburgh. So aside from Pittsburgh sports teams, I think the Rangers, while shallower on offense, I think they still have that star power with Artemi Panarin. Like I've seen firsthand how electric that man can be. I think
Ryder had the best year of his career, arguably, as well.
Mika Zibanejad. They have Adam Fox now on their defense.
Andrew Kopp, the deadline as well. Beautiful pickup that's fit in really, really well. Alex Lafreniere is starting to come out of his shell. They're a good team.
They're a very good team, and I'm picking them to win this series. Like, I know I said for St. Louis it's hard to bet against experience, but fuck the Penguins. And also, their goaltending to me is a little sus, and I think if there's a series where someone can get goalied, I think it is this series. Pitch where Shesterkin is absolutely going fucking wild and destroying the Penguins' hopes and dreams, which is a win for all of us.
I mean,
also
not
fuck
for
Jeff
all
Carter.
of us. This one is really interesting to me. I mean, of course, as a Pens fan, but it depends a lot on which Penguins team decides to show up, because this Penguins team, I mean, earlier in the season they went, you know, they had an incredible streak of wins and followed that up by kind of falling off a cliff for a little while and kind of stumbling into the playoffs. And recently, you know, this Penguins team has, I think, all of the pieces to maybe not win the cup with how stacked this slate of teams in the playoffs is, but at least I think make a deep run. You know, Crosby and Malkin, you don't really want to bet on against them a lot of times. Rust, Gensel, of course. Tristan Jarry at his peak is great, even though he's not in this series currently. And Ricard Raquel was a great deadline pickup. He's been great. If Kasperi Kapanen's going at full swing, which he hasn't been this season, he's good. Jason Zucker, if he comes back and he's going at full swing, like, this is a scary team if they're healthy and at full swing. The problem is they aren't healthy right now, and will they be at full swing is the biggest question. They've played the Rangers 3 times, you know, near the end of the season, and I think dropped all 3 of them. Granted, I think Crosby was out for one of them and Malkin was out for one of them, but still. And the Rangers, you know, kind of the opposite, where they had a, you know, rougher start to the season, not a bad one, but not as good, and have picked it up a lot as of late and have been great as of late. Shesterkin has been great all season, of course, as a Shesterkin fantasy owner and a Jarry fantasy owner. You know, it's been pretty good having those two on the team. Yeah, from the same trade. It's insane that I had Jarry, Shesterkin.
Wait, go back. Time out. What was that trade?
It was like
those are from the same one.
Very early in the season, or right before the season, I traded Peter Mrazek, Patrick Hornquist, and Aiden Hill to Will for Shesterkin, Jarry, and Patrick Laine.
Yeah.
Granted, nobody knew that they were going to have the seasons they did, but still, that is insane, especially with hindsight.
At the time, it seemed perfectly fine, but
no, it doesn't. That is what?
Goodness did it age poorly or well, depending on who you're talking to.
But yeah,
but
I
yeah,
mean, real quick, just to wrap up, it
yeah,
really depends on which Penguins team shows up because I think we kind of know what the Rangers are. They have a pretty strong team, but nothing super, super spectacular, like Colorado or Florida type, with, league best goaltending. And for this pick, my heart says Penguins, of course. My heart wants to say that they're going to show up as the good team that they are, that they can be. My brain says Rangers because the Penguins haven't given me anything recently to actually make me think that that's going to happen. And we won't know until it does. But
it's just a shame too that you have Tristan Jarry, who even as a Penguins fan and a Tristan Jarry apologist, is the reason the Penguins did not win a series last year.
yeah,
And that
he was
sucked.
awful last year in the
And
playoffs.
he's had a great resurgence this year, and he's not available at least for the first 2 games. It sounds like of this.
He's
So
not able to either, cement that
yeah,
playoff choking thing
exactly.
or,
Right, or build
redemption
back.
arc, yeah.
And Casey DeSmith has done well this season, but I don't trust that. Again, this is the third series where I feel like it's made a lot less intriguing because of actually the Hurricane series is made more intriguing because of the goalie absence. But this is another case where the goalie absence is going to be a big driver, in my opinion. I don't know. I think if the Penguins can steal one of those first 2 games, if they can get Jarry back and he plays well, which is another thing, it's one thing to play well in the playoffs. It's another thing to play well in the playoffs after not playing for the past couple of weeks and having to jump right into that space. So even if they get him back, it's going to be a harder transition. I think the Malkin suspension might honestly be a blessing in disguise as he got some rest down the stretch. Is going to have a little bit of more spry legs early on in this series and down the stretch as well. But yeah, I don't know. I think the Penguins are a deeper team in terms of skaters, but goaltending is once again a question mark for the Penguins. I feel like I don't know what it's like to not have a question mark in goaltending in the playoffs as a Pens fan. And then the Rangers seem to have the biggest lock there is, even over Andre Vasilevsky at this point with Igor Shesterkin. So I think it's going to be an uphill battle for the Penguins. I think it can happen, but again, I would hedge my bets here and let my heart want the Penguins, and then let my brain and my wallet dictate the rest, and put the money on the Rangers if I were to have to, pick someone to win this series.
I think it's kind of like you said earlier with the Oilers and the Kings. I think the Penguins have a higher ceiling and a lower floor, where the Rangers are kind of in the middle there, where, again, we more than likely kind of know what they are.
Right. It's like if the Penguins are on, I could see them getting a deep run. I don't see the Rangers winning the East in any capacity. I think they could run the table in the second round as well, but I don't think they're getting past the likes of Florida, Tampa, Toronto, and I don't know that anyone is.
I would be extremely shocked if the Rangers made the Cup final. I would be shocked, but maybe it's just my bias, but I wouldn't be super, super shocked if the Penguins managed to pull it off and, became the, Penguins that I know and love. Because, again, they still have Crosby and Malkin, and if Jarry's on, that's, great. It's kind of Matt Murray-esque, with a newer goaltender.
So, Jersey perspective, a tight series as well, I'd say. Even as a Penguins fan, I don't know that my bias carries here. So I want more time to think on it, and I'll defer to y'all in the interim.
So I mentioned earlier that the Blues have the third best jersey set in the league. I'm wearing the team that has the second best jersey set in the league, in my opinion. And the Rangers are the team with the first best jersey set in the league. I think Pittsburgh has a fantastic home. Their away has kind of grown on me. I wasn't a massive fan of it at first.
Really? You prefer the home? Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the away has too much yellow. I think the
that's what I love about the away.
I know exactly.
Bit of a better balance of them. I don't know.
Interesting.
But I think there's just nothing in the league that beats that Rangers away, man. It's just beautiful. So I take the Rangers in 6, maybe 5.
Ooh, ouch.
Justin, do you want to take up this
That's
one, or
nothing
do you
against
want
the
to
Penguins.
toss it to me still?
I'll go for it. I mean, I love the Rangers away. For a while, it was my favorite jersey in the NHL. It's been surpassed by the Sabres new away. Uh, um, the Rangers home, though, as the years go by, I get tired of it. I don't know. I just think it's there. It exists. I don't know. I feel like again, I love the Stars jerseys, and arguably it's the same jersey at the end of the day. But I feel like the Stars have the benefit of having a unique color, as Brendan mentioned, and for me, that's why I like the Sabres jersey so much. I love their blue. So for me, with a red, white, and blue team, which is the most common color scheme in the NHL and in sports as a whole, at least in North America, I want something more. The drop shadow's cool, unique text, having the diagonal Rangers word mark. It's all like all of it makes sense, but I don't know. At the end of the day, it just leaves me wanting a bit more. Whereas the Penguins, maybe it's personal bias, but both of them are stellar. I prefer the away. I love, making yellow prominent there to give a white jersey a lot of life. So I think, this is another situation where I try to take my homerism into context and factor it in. But I think even with that understood, I still think there's enough gap between the Penguins set and that Rangers home just because it's not terribly inventive to me. I think it's possible that my ranking would be the Rangers away ahead of both of the Penguins primaries, but I think the Rangers home is behind them and by a wider margin than the Rangers away is atop them. But absolutely stellar matchup here in terms of jerseys. Arguably the best. I think it's up there with the Stars and Flames, and I consider myself lucky that my two favorite teams are in arguably the best matchups for the playoffs. So it sure will be a treat both to watch them as a fan and just as a jersey connoisseur on top of that.
Well, it might not be that much of a treat to watch them as a fan, depending on how they do.
I prefer to watch non-Penguins playoff games than Penguins playoff games because they just stress me out.
It was really fun watching Penguins playoff games in 16 and 17, but ever since then, it's just, I feel like I've been chasing that high of that. I feel like I was saying last year, like, just give me one playoff overtime win. Like,
Yeah,
because they've gone to overtime quite a few times since then and haven't won one, I don't think. And honestly, to me, there's nothing like the highs of a playoff overtime win, no matter, no matter it's game 1 or game 7, but there's nothing like the lows of a overtime playoff loss. So,
especially
Dude, that
team.
5 overtime game against Tampa, fucking soul crushing.
Oh
I forgot about that.
That was.
I could hardly watch as like a neutral third party. I can't even imagine the stress of
I
actually.
knew it would be fucking Braden Point. Braden Point is arguably the most clutch player in the NHL.
Brutal.
Which is part of why I picked him on my fantasy team.
Yeah, right, exactly. now I can like something. Brendan, we're talking about jerseys though. How do we feel?
This is.
I feel like saying on purpose.
I was gonna say, this is arguably the toughest matchup for me just because I have to try to put my bias aside. Now, if we're going off of which jerseys I like better, it's the Penguins ones, by a lot, and that's 100% due to my bias. I really like the color yellow, and that's probably also because of the Penguins. And, their current set is, what I think they should stick with, maybe aside from minor changes here, for who knows how long. But the Rangers set, it's really hard to go against that one. I've said before that I'm kind of iffy on their road for some reason. It kind of grows on and off of me. I don't know what it is about it that I might not like. But, looking at it now, I really, really like it. And either way, I never thought it was bad. I just never thought it, or sometimes I don't think it's, top tier in the league as some of you guys do. I'm kind of the opposite, though. I really love their home jersey. I think the colors are balanced really well. Maybe it's just because I also really like the color blue. But I think that looks really great here. I think I have two of this jersey. I think one Reebok one and one like CCM one that I found for cheap somewhere, like, pre-Reebok Edge version. And I think it's a really nice look. And so while I think I like the Penguins jerseys better, I have to give the edge to the Rangers just in terms of who I think necessarily is the better jerseys. And it's
You mentioned the Rangers away seeming a little off. I'm wondering now what it would look like to see them experiment like the Blue Jackets did with blue pants on the road. I don't think I'd want to see it full time.
Oh, yeah.
But I didn't it be.
Yeah, I mentioned this. I guess now as of recording today, but last time, like, I wouldn't mind seeing that. I wouldn't mind seeing like that. It's like take the yoke whisker striping, put that down the sides. I wouldn't mind seeing that at least for a couple times.
I think what the Rangers one, that road jersey, does it for me is that, like, even though it's really not, I think sometimes the shoulder yoke with the striping in it almost makes it look a little too busy. Even though, again, I really don't think it actually is. I think that almost just adds a tiny bit of clunk to it for me. And I think that's why I'm a little bit, iffy on it sometimes. But it's still a great jersey regardless. Like, even if it's not, top 1, 2, 3 in the league, it's still, I'd say, top 10, even if I'm iffy on it. And of course, like, it's hard to really separate the history of the jersey in there. The Penguins have won quite a few cups in this look, but the Rangers have had this kind of thing for God knows how long, and also won some cups in it, I think. So, yeah, they definitely have at least one in 94.
Right.
I'm sure more.
I mean, the Rangers have worn this basically. I mean, with the exception of the full-length yoke that they did, for 3 years. 2 years in the 70s. They've worn this since, the home version they've worn since their inception. And then the road has been their
the home one had a little break in there
50s.
from the, in the 80s and 90s where it was just the road jersey flipped over without a yoke.
They had a little blue stripes in it, and then for a while it also said New York instead of Rangers.
Right. I wish they would do that on the road. I wish they had New York on the road. I think that would be a cool touch. Kind of
like how like NBA or MLB you have, a lot of teams having the home jerseys with the road marks of the team name, and then the road has the city.
Yeah, at this point it's a bit too late to change it, but I wouldn't mind if they ever if they should bring not like this exact jersey back, but I think having a retro alt with New York down it is the way to go.
I wouldn't be surprised if they did that for a reverse retro coming up. If they did a New York script one, would they make it red? Maybe not. But I think it'd be cool, a New York script one with that original lighter blue that's even lighter than the blue they wear now. I think that would be really neat. But
bring back their Winter Classic, but with New York instead of Rangers.
There you go. Regardless, the Rangers beat the Penguins from a jersey perspective, which will finish our first round from a jersey standpoint. We're not going to go deeper into playoff predictions other than that, but quick fire.
If we're doing number of games, Panthers in 4, right?
4.
Bruins in
5.
7. I would say.
Yeah. So.
Well, okay, no, never mind. I forgot about the alternate.
No, Bruins
I'd go
in 6.
Yeah. 5. Yeah.
5. I forgot about
6?
the alternate part. Toronto
6
in.
for that?
What?
5 or 6.
I would say 4 or 5.
I would say I'm going to lean 5 because I think Tampa still has good jerseys, and then Rangers in 7. Right?
7. Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. So,
and again, these are all jersey perspective. The bracket that I'm filling out here.
So before we fill out the jersey bracket, hockey perspective. If you had $10, if I gave you $10 to put on a team for the Stanley Cup, all at even odds. Let's not factor that into it. But who is your Stanley Cup pick at this moment before the playoffs kick off tomorrow or today at time of listening, or in the past, depending on where you're listening?
Stanley Cup final matchup pick or Stanley Cup champion pick?
Do both, yeah. Stanley Cup final and champion. So who's your champion and over whom?
I'm not going to pick the Flames or Maple Leafs just because I think it's funny that a Canadian team hasn't won in a while, and I want to keep that going. And also, I don't think they will do it. I think it's hard to bet against Tampa. I know exhaustion is going to be a factor, but until they lose, I can't. Until they lose, I think I'm going to put it on them, and I'll say Colorado for their opponent.
There you go. Tampa over Colorado. Brandon, you have yours ready? You want me to go?
I'm going to have you go real quick because I'm just filling out my personal bracket just very quickly.
I've done my bracket, and in our first round prediction, I've already gone against it at least once. I think I'm going to go against it again, and I might even change my bracket after thinking about it more. I think I had Colorado over Toronto in my bracket initially. I believe in Toronto. I think if they're going to do it, this is the year to do it. I think the jokes have been funny for a while, but I think the team and myself are tired of them, and so I want to see them do something about it. I think it'll be hard. They have the hardest path, but I think you're trial by fire, and if they can come out of that Atlantic Division group, then I think they're well on their way. I had Colorado originally, and I think they're an amazing team. I just don't know if I trust Darcy Kemper to goalkeep a team to a Stanley Cup. So I think I'm going to go with the Flames out of the West. And so I'm going to actually pick a all-Canadian Stanley Cup. That way it's guaranteed from my Canadian roots that it returns up north. And then I'm going to say Calgary over Toronto in 6 games. And they bring it home to Calgary.
Now, I actually just filled it out, and I originally put Colorado and Florida in the Cup final. It's really interesting trying to pick the teams that make it because a lot of the times, you give the what's it called? Tie goes to the veteran, where the tie goes to the team that has more playoff experience. Well, a lot of the hard-hitting teams don't have a lot of playoff experience in deep runs. Colorado have they made the conference finals with this core? I don't remember, but I know that they've a couple times been taken out a little earlier than everybody would think. Calgary,
in 2020 against Dallas.
That was the second.
Okay, maybe not.
It was Vegas, Dallas in the conference final.
Right.
The last 3 years, they've made it to the second round and lost.
Yeah.
So they're the Leafs 1 round deeper.
They're the new Capitals.
Yeah.
Really.
Guess what the Capitals did after losing all those times?
Yeah.
Stanley Cup, baby.
Feels like the stars are aligning for the Avs to do it. If Kemper can backstop them.
And Calgary is kind of, upstart this year in terms of a contender. They haven't really been considered contenders for a couple years here. Same with Florida. Toronto's been, contending, but hasn't made it out of the first round. And this year they seem to have the more complete team. But you're kind of, what we said earlier, but you saying it again about Toronto, just is this feeling like a different team. I ended up kind of changing my pick over Florida. I wouldn't be surprised to see either of them make it. Let's be real. But, it's kind of my bias in there. But I have Toronto and Colorado in the Cup final, and it's definitely my bias. But I'm putting Toronto winning it.
There you go. First one since 19.
It's again. There's so many teams that it's hard. It's far from a hard prediction there, but
that Atlantic bracket is brutal.
I don't think as a Penguins fan, I don't think it matters what happens to the Penguins versus the Rangers or even in the second round. Don't think a team on side is touching any other teams unless the Capitals find a way to squeak through 2 rounds. But at that point, they're going to be hot.
Imagine flipping Boston and Washington in the bracket if Boston came second wild card. Oh, that Atlantic. Because Washington's the only team that we were really like, this isn't really. I mean, I don't think Boston would have made it much of a series against Florida, but I'd put them over Washington for sure. Boston.
I think the one factor that would be in the Metro's favor is that if both of the Atlantic series go long, those teams will be fucking beating the shit out of each other.
True. There also is something to be said about if it was a 4-game sweep or something like that, having so much time off.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
happened to the Blue Jackets in 2019
Yeah.
against Boston.
Versus
Yeah,
coming
honestly,
in, a little fresher.
It's possible you have the Panthers get a 4-game sweep of the Capitals and then have to sit on their hands while Tampa and Toronto slug it out for a full 7. And I don't think that would be.
Now, what I think would be fun, there's no way in hell this gets put into practice. And I also just thought of this now, so it's probably a terrible idea. But have it so that teams that like sweep other teams get the opportunity to fill their rest of their schedule with like non-playoff teams if they want to.
I love it. Just like scrimmages. That's fun. I'm here for it. So it sounds like two of us had the Leafs. Burkus, remind me of yours again. Was it
Tampa over Colorado?
So two of us have Colorado. So it sounds like the average matchup is Colorado Leafs, and then the winner is a toss-up. And I could see it.
I mean, my conference final too in the West was
Colorado
Calgary. So Calgary
I
was
also
right
wouldn't
on
be
the
surprised
doorstep
if
for me.
Florida makes it. I wouldn't be surprised if Calgary makes it, and I would be surprised, but I wouldn't be shocked if the Rangers make it.
Also, if Dallas can pull off an upset about Calgary, I don't hate Dallas against Edmonton or LA.
Personally, just for the fun of it, I really want to see a battle of Alberta in the second round.
Yes.
That would be fun.
Okay. Now, do you want to speed through the jersey picks for the rest of the bracket?
Oh, yeah. We haven't even done that yet. Goodness. All right. Quick hits. Colorado, Minnesota.
I think Avs home is better than the Wild away, and the Wild home is better than Avs away. So I'm going to go Colorado.
I'm going Minnesota. I mean, again, they're one of my favorites in the league.
Yeah, I think Minnesota and the Avs both have phenomenal home uniforms, but I think the equipment disconnect on the road, I think, would be insurmountable for the Avs. So I think it would be Minnesota for me as well. So that would put Minnesota into our conference final in the West to face the winner of.
Which, quite frankly,
Dallas.
I wouldn't be surprised if they made the conference final too. They'd have to really. I would be a little surprised because they have to surmount Colorado, but who knows? Maybe they continue the 2020s Washington arc.
Right. Dallas, Edmonton.
That's Dallas.
Yeah.
Anyone? 20 is anything.
It's Dallas, even if Edmonton's wearing their home jerseys. Let's be real here.
Fair.
Atlantic, I know you guys are both really high on the Panthers, so I'm outnumbered, but I would personally go Toronto, but you guys both go Panthers. So
I don't know.
I really don't know what to say for this one, because the Panthers are really good and Toronto is also really good.
Also, just for the sake of our eyes, I hope that's what we get.
Oh, that would be a fantastic looking series. I mean, granted, we're pretty much getting the same series regardless. I mean, if Florida Washington is as decided as we think it is, and Toronto and Tampa are playing them, we're getting the same series either way. So
big pan.
I'm gonna give tie to the bias and to the veteran and say Toronto.
Really, I'm definitely gonna be. I'm a Florida guy through and through. I think Florida set is probably top 3 in the league. I think it's excellent. That being said, Toronto's no slouch, so not upset either way.
I've said this before, but ask me again in like 5 minutes. Maybe I change my mind.
Right,
they're that close.
That would be a 7-game series, maybe a 8-game series even.
Rangers Bruins, very good. I think Rangers.
I'm also Rangers. I like the amount of color in there more than the Bruins.
A black jersey, yeah, same as Rangers for me there too. Which, ironically, we have the green Western Conference and the blue.
Oh wow!
So Minnesota, Dallas. Interesting.
I would go Dallas on that. Like I said, I really like their home and away, like the unique color. And it's a classic look. And I know you guys are both really high on Minnesota home, but it just doesn't do a lot for me.
And also, surprisingly, I don't think this would be that good of a uniform matchup. I think the two different greens would be a little bit odd, especially with a deeper green in Minnesota, and then Dallas also having black, and then throwing red. Like, there's just a lot of like close but not the same color going on here.
I'm giving this one to Minnesota because, again, it's one of my favorite sets in the league, and especially that home jersey is one of my favorites. But again, Dallas is no slouch.
Yeah, I love the Minnesota home. I always change how I feel about the Minnesota road, but I don't change how I feel about the Stars home and away. So it's Stars for me. So I think that sees us with the Stars coming back to the Stanley Cup Finals.
And also, I will say Dallas has the better green, the better shade of green.
Yeah,
I just like Minnesota's jersey design better.
fair, fair. Now I'm wondering, take the Minnesota jersey, replace the green with victory green, and the red with black, and then the cream with white.
Oh,
That sounds awful, honestly.
huh? Yeah,
Like it's one of the colors
Let's
are better.
avoid that thought.
Too much
These
white. I want to try it though.
Rangers, again, it's hard to go against the Rangers. I think they have the best set in the league, and that the uniqueness of the road with those yoke whiskers, like, and also with Toronto's inconsistency between the arm and hem, I got to go Rangers.
Interesting.
This is another one. Ask me in 5 minutes. Maybe I change my mind. I'm going Leafs mainly because it's kind of like what Justin said, how I kind of flip-flop on the Rangers road jersey, whereas with the Leafs one, I really like both their home and their road, and I pretty consistently. The inconsistent arm and hem, has grown on me. I still don't like it, but it's grown on me, and that logo is fantastic. So I'm going Leafs, but in Game 7, triple overtime.
Yeah, I agree there. I mean, I think it's I don't know the similar vein, except instead of flip flopping on the road, I flip flop on the home for the Rangers. Whereas Toronto, I even love the inconsistency. I think it makes it a little more interesting. The logo is the best logo Toronto's ever had. Yeah, it's Leafs for me, and as someone who grew up with a dad who was from Toronto, and I grew up just outside of Dallas, I can say this is definitely his dream matchup for sure. It's definitely
that would be a great looking
Toronto
Stanley Cup final too. It's basically the Vancouver Canucks who have a great color scheme. Add a little tiny bit of black. I mean, I guess it depends on if you're in Toronto or Dallas, but
gosh, this would be sweet if I just looked up just Leaf Stars jersey matchups to see them both in the same picture. And there was a game where the Stars wore their Winter Classic against the Leafs Road, and the equipment is a little weird with the brown, but like if the Stars just had green equipment and just that, no black in it, and you have two color teams. Oh, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Ooh, yeah, that looks great.
I think that the Stars take this. It's a bit of the best modern classic on the block look, and while Toronto I think has room to improve, Dallas I don't really think can.
Yeah, that's a good analysis. I think it always surprises me how much people want to shoehorn the Stars back into the star pattern look, and it's like, do you not realize like how great what they have is? And I think for me it's just the color intrigue. Like blue and white is something we see a million times. I mean, it's a gorgeous blue and white. Don't get me wrong, but I think the Stars, green, black, and white with such a unique green, definitely gives a little bit of a boost to the look overall and just keeps it feeling fresh. But this would be one of the best Stanley Cup final matchups we could hope for in terms of a jersey's perspective. In terms of hockey, I'd be very shocked if we were to see these results. But again, as these are my second and third favorite teams, it's a welcome surprise, to say the least, or it would be. But certainly not something I would see coming. But it sounds like the Dallas Stars are our 2022 Stanley Cup of Jerseys champion.
And I'm going to make that a sweep as well, because I think the Leafs, I like their jersey design better, because there's still something about Dallas's design that seems like it could be a little more unique. And the road jersey, I think, is a little more black heavy than I'd like it. But I give the edge to the unique color, paired with the fact that they're still really good jerseys regardless of what I just said before that. So Dallas.
Hear me out. Dallas, Toronto, but the Leafs are wearing their St. Pat's jerseys as their road jersey.
That would be a good matchup, but I don't want to see it in the playoffs. Have the Leafs played against wearing that? Hasn't it been the Devils like twice?
Carolina, I think
right.
The Devils.
They have played.
Now I'm thinking deeper. The Stars Winter Classic. That is basically that green and white against the Leafs St. Pats.
So Toronto, Tampa, but green.
Right, but the other way. That's funny.
Honestly, I think it would look good.
Number of goals, we should do 21 for the number of good jerseys in this playoffs.
Whoa, did you actually count through them?
I'm not going to argue with you on that because 21 is my favorite number anyways. So
I was going to say 67 for the memes with Toronto.
Or 69 for the other memes.
10?
Yes. 400, 42,069.
You know, you should just put your social security number as the goals card in the Stanley Cup Playoffs.
You guys should submit your brackets and put your tiebreaker as the goals scored as your mom's credit card number, and don't forget the 3 digits on the back. Disclaimer: do not actually do that, please.
We don't want to get sued.
Yeah. I mean,
Jersey Nerds Media is not responsible for your dumb decisions in putting your credit card information as a Stanley Cup bracket tiebreaker for some reason.
Well, folks, we have a champion. We have an actual expected champion as well. And shout out to the Leafs for being good at hockey and jerseys, getting to the finals, across the board, and both. So kudos to them. Hopefully, looking good makes them play good. Any other closing comments before we wrap things today, gentlemen?
Fuck Jeff Carter.
There it is. I was going to say besides that, but he's not it. So here we are. Cool.
Let's go Pens, hopefully.
Happy playoffs. Go Pens, go Blue Jackets. I hope they both win their series. Oh, wait. Interesting. Go Pens, I guess. Just that. And we will see you next time on the Jersey Nerds podcast.
I can't wait till you guys miss the playoffs.
You're going to have to wait at least one more year. Maybe not many more.
The Jersey Nerds podcast is a production of Jersey Nerds Media. The Jersey Nerds are Bpoe, Hunter, Justin, Chris, and Noah.
And Will.
Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at @the_Jersey Nerds and hit that link in our bio to find our blog, our Discord channel, our online store, and more. And be sure to rate, comment, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to us. We really appreciate it. From the Jersey Nerds to you, thanks for just listening to a podcast about you.